Hi, welcome to the Pathways of Life podcast. I'm your host today, David Miller. The topic today has to deal with the family. And I don't think right up front that anybody wants to have a broken home. I don't think you wake up in the morning or you graduate from high school thinking, I think I'll go have a failed marriage or two and have children by 3 or 4 different ladies. Or the other way around. I don't think I'm going to have a house full of kids by 4 different fathers. That's not the kind of thing people plan just because. I think those things happen for several reasons. I do find it heartbreaking to see the behavior of many children today. This in stores and grocery stores and out on the street, the behavior, sometimes it's pretty scary. I remember a time when a rebellious child or a misbehaving child was actually abnormal. When I grew up, a well-behaved teenager would stand out in a crowd. I think the numbers have shifted. What we see, I believe, is the cause of this is a total disrespect for authority. And I think that has a lot to do. In fact, researchers have been showing it has a lot to do with the quality of the home life and whether there's what we call a nuclear family, a mother, a maternal figure, and a paternal figure. Criminal street gangs have been finding these children that have lack of authority and structure in their home, and they give them structure. The parents are AWOL or just apathetic or have substance issues, things like that happen, and it's a terrible thing to see. And I hurt for the children and I hurt for the parents. And they don't understand sometimes when the authorities have to remove the children from the environment. But then again, that's another story. I'm sure many of you are concerned as well. Perhaps you live in a part of the country where this is not as prevalent, but it is there. You can watch social media and you can see the police body cam videos from all over the country, and the same story is being told over and over again. Daddy's drunk or mama's drunk. The children need to leave, or sometimes they're abused, which is just a horrible thing. I can't imagine that. Well, bottom line is the country needs some help. I believe it was Pope John Paul many years ago. I'm not Catholic, but somebody says something good, I'll listen to it. Said, as the family goes, so goes the nation. Meaning that as the family structure breaks down as a whole, the country's not long behind it. But I know we're concerned that things need to be better. And they may need to be better in your home, whether you're a teenager or a young teen, or whether you're a parent. I'm pretty sure that you'd like to see a house, if you don't have one, that is based on love and structure and comfort. And I'm not talking about physical comfort. I'm talking about comfort of the soul, where there's peace. You don't have to worry about walking on eggshells around your parents. You don't have to wonder, parents, if one of your children is going to explode in a fit of rage at any point in time. All of these things are terrible. The good news is, and whether you believe in the Bible or not, the Christian Bible gives guidance and instruction on how to mitigate this in your home. It's all pretty simple. Stay with me for a moment, and what we'll do is explore what the Bible, the Christian Bible, has to say about the wisdom given to parents and to children in their care. The Bible, wisdom raising children. You can't study this topic without going to the book of Proverbs. Even if you don't believe in the Bible as the Word of God, as I do, still there's wisdom there and there's things you can learn from it. And it doesn't cost anything to use it and to better your life. Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he won't depart from it. There's some exceptions. There's young folks with mental problems that, that has to be an exception to this rule. But a child that's brought up in a home with structure will live a life, most times, that is structured. But if they grow up in an atmosphere of chaos, well, that's what they're going to carry to the next generation. And it keeps on going. Sadly, in cases where there's child abuse, or whether physical or otherwise, or even verbal abuse, this child abuse carries on to the next generation because, a young man growing up in a home where he was yelled at and profanity was used at him all the time, he was called stupid or other horrible names. Well, guess what? As far as he knows, that's how you raise a child. And he'll carry that on to his children. Or girls that are called worthless and useless or stupid and degraded in one form or another. That's how they're going to feel when they go into a marriage relationship, if they even care to do that. But the Bible's saying, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he's old, he will not depart from it. That's pretty smart, and it's relevant today. An earlier book in the Christian Bible is Deuteronomy. In chapter 6, verses 5 and 6, very simple. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I'm commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Now, I don't want you to ignore this because it says to love God. Now, some of you are not believers out there, and I understand that. But let's take the rest of it. You'd have a principle that you want to teach them. Of course, if you go to my household, you want to love God. That is the thing. But I understand that you might have grown up in a house without God. And I'd like to introduce him to you. We'll stick to the topic for now. But you'll teach them diligently to your son. Notice right here the first thing, teach. A lot of times in families that I've seen, just so you know in my background, I worked for the phone company for 35 years. I was in people's houses every day for many, many years, fixing the phone lines, etc., or installing phone lines, or doing what I do. And I got to see all kinds of households in different points of array. And you could tell in a household where the children were obedient and respectful and said please and thank you and all those things we're supposed to have learned in preschool and kindergarten. They've been taught. It has to be an activity. You have to do it. Just like toilet training a young child, it takes time and it takes effort and it takes teaching and it takes encouragement. And all of these things, if you want to teach these things to your sons, and talk of them when you sit down in your house. So when you sit down in the afternoon, you bring up the situation. When you walk by the way, when you're walking along, you're traveling to the next town, you talk about it. When you lie down and when you rise up. So before bed, you take a moment and talk to your kids. When you get up in the morning, you greet them and you talk to them about this. Hey, Johnny, remember to say please and thank you. Remember to respect your teachers. Remember to be kind to the children around you. All of these things are abject lessons that they should be taught. And sadly, there's too many parents today that exist. They make sure there's food in their belly. Hopefully, make sure there's a place to sleep. But they're just left to run in chaos the rest of the time. And sadly, these children grow up lacking in intellect and social interaction that can be harmful to them in the future. Being taught by your parents and being taught the right things, those are things that carry forth. And those are things that help a child to mature and grow and to be behaved in society. There's another verse in the book of Proverbs again, chapter 29, verse 17. Correct your son, and he will give you comfort. He will also delight your soul. If you were in a ship and steering along and you saw a rock coming up, wouldn't you turn the rudder so you can miss the rock? I mean, I would hope so. Sadly, We see a child going down, reaching for the hot stove. You go, he'll figure it out. Or someone mistreating their sibling. Oh, they'll figure it out. Or someone pestering a pit bull. Yeah, they'll figure it out. I mean, sure, those are ways to learn, but that's the hard way to learn. It's not always the most effective. Correct them. And if you see one of your children make a mistake, correct them. Point them on the right path. Hey, I saw that you did this. And it's as easy as say, why did you do that? Can you see that this would be a better idea? And imparting that kind of wisdom and discussing that with your children is extremely effective. Having 3 daughters, I grew up wanting to make sure that they dressed modestly when they got older. Because as a young man, when I was a teenager, nothing was worse than the girls that came to school in bikini tops and Daisy Duke pants and were flaunting themselves. And you've got young men that are, in a time of life when their hormones are very powerful. And yeah, it wasn't a good thing. I don't want my girls to be looked at that way. So I decided, and my wife decided early on, to train them to dress modestly. And it didn't come down to forcing them to, you put that on, or you put this on, or else. It wasn't like that. But when we drove around and we saw some young woman who was dressed what I will call trashy, who was showing way too much skin, and perhaps we were passing through an area where there were ladies of the evening or something like that, we would look over and say, it's sad they think they have to be that way to get respect. And the girls got to think about that. It says, oh, wait, they're doing this to try to get the wrong kind of respect. So, and also when I would see somebody dressed professionally and modestly, we would praise that. Oh, look at her. You know what? She really does take care in how she dresses. That's a good thing. And it's just constant like that. Every time we see an opportunity, we would say something in conversation. And the children learned from this. And my daughters never showed any skin that shouldn't be shown in public. They always were covered up. They dressed nice. And consequently, I don't have any young children out of wedlock hanging around at grandma and grandpa's ankles. They married good men. And they found husbands that loved them and respect them and didn't pick them because of how they dressed. You can see where this is going. Correct your son and he will give you comfort. He will delight in your soul. I can't imagine if I hadn't have done that training with the girls, what they might have the battles we might have had before they left the house on a date. And I see those things happen in other households all over. In the New Testament, there's a verse, Ephesians 6, verse 4. This is an important one because I've seen this in a lot of folks' houses. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Don't provoke your children to anger. I've seen this. We had a neighbor when I was growing up, when I was in elementary school, junior high, and everybody was afraid of old Peter's dad, because Peter's dad would just come out when he didn't gently walk out of a house. He burst out of a house, and it was always that he had to show that muscle and that authority, that manly man thing, which is fine. It's just that his raising his sons was out of fear. Now he did teach them some good things, but he also would demean them pretty severely. He basically kind of bullied them if they didn't get it right up front. And that's a technique, but of course I don't respect that personally, but kind of leaves what this is, not provoking your children to anger. There's a way to discipline. And I grew up in an age where, hey, I got swatted. And that's okay. I'm thankful for every swat I got. I deserved every one of them, let me tell you. But I'm thankful for them because they taught me how to be a good man. Don't provoke them to anger. You can I've seen examples that have been in the media over the last 7 or 8 years of folks who, one woman locked her children in a safe in the dark overnight. It was a big safe, like a vault, there in Arizona. And she locked them in the safe overnight, and they had to sleep on the floor, on the cold floor, to teach them to obey, and provoking them to anger. The kids didn't like that, and at some point in time they quit learning and started just being afraid. Another verse, Proverbs 29:15, says, "The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child who gets his own way brings shame to his mother." And this is what we've seen in a lot of places like, Walmart, but a lot of places like Walmart, shopping centers, sometimes Costco, other places, where you see children that are misbehaving and, I want that, I want that, I want that, and mom just hands it to them because she doesn't want to fight the battle. But let me tell you, the battle is worth fighting. Teaching them discipline and teaching them how to handle money and teaching them responsibility. Man, these are the things that are going to help them grow up to be good adults, to take care of you when you get old. Psalm 103. You remember where the Psalms is, written there by David. Psalm 103:13. "Just as a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him." The Father has compassion on his children. Compassion. We hope that fathers love their kids. We hope that they have compassion for them. We hope that they care enough to say no when it's appropriate to say no, and loving enough to say yes when it's appropriate to say yes. Leadership in the home has to be gives and takes. It has to be pull and not push. In fact, that's kind of a definition of leadership, is pulling people to success. Whereas in one of the courses I took with the phone company, bosses push, leaders pull. And people push against the bosses, but when someone leads somebody, it's much easier to get them to go where they need to go, when you draw them to that. Jesus said, "If I be lifted up on the cross, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me." I'm misquoting that, I'm sure. It came off the top of my head. But he draws people to him. He was the example of the greatest leader. He gently pulls along. Another thing found in the Christian Bible, in the Old Testament, are the examples of bad parents. A high priest named Eli had 2 sons named Hophni and Phinehas. And they were doing the sacrifices wrong because they were all Levites and they were being trained up to priesthood also. But they were basically ripping people off and causing people to sacrifice incorrectly. And hey, God got upset at them. And it ended up costing Eli his job, basically, as well as his life and his son's lives. But the main thing is that he was a bad parent. He saw what they did, and all he did was say, "Don't you see what you're doing? That's a bad thing to do." But he didn't do anything about it. So apparently they grew up a wee bit too lenient, and, well, they became an embarrassment to Dad. A note for children. If you're watching this and you're young, this is a way to help in your household too, so that you can learn and grow. Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 4. You've heard this before. "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger," as mentioned before, "but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." A lot going on there, huh? The main thing is that the wisdom in the Bible it's been around for thousands of years. And it's been tried and true. And households that have practiced this have proved over and over that it's effective in raising a good, structural, functional family. because we know there's dysfunctional families all the way around us. We don't need to add to that fodder. But we do need to focus on how to lead our children so they don't become the dregs of society. Nobody wants to see their child become, well, the one that all the police all know for the wrong reasons. The one with the rap sheet the size of, the grapes of wrath. We don't need our children to do that. And I know you don't want your children to be that way. And children, I know that you'd like to see structure in your home. Did you know, children, that you can talk to your parents and say, hey, can we set some boundaries so I'll know how to act? That'd be a brave thing to say. And maybe that wouldn't work in every situation. But you do have to say, recognize that structure is good. And authority is necessary in order for society to work. Not bossing, authority. Somebody's got to make the rules, somebody's got to enforce the laws, and somebody's got to, unfortunately, punish when that time comes due. And disrespect for authority, I've seen it over and over in all of the police body cams. When you tell a police officer, I don't have to get out of the car, well, you're going to lose that. I mean, you're just going to lose it. But you don't want your child being put up in that situation either. I do appreciate your time today, and I hope you take this with the spirit that it's intended. I would like for all of you to have a good home like the one I grew up in, and I would like your children to have a good home like the one my children grew up in. Not that I'm great. I'm just a telephone guy. I'm a retired old man that paid attention to my daddy and my grandpa, and who put those lessons to work, and I'm reaping the benefits of it many times over right now. It was well worth everything I put into it, and I hope you can understand that. Please stay tuned for further editions. We're going to be talking about other things that the Bible is relevant for to help you in your life here on earth. Make your life better and hopefully lead you to eternal life. That would be a good thing. But thank you for watching. Again, my name is Dave Miller, and this is The Pathways of Life.